The context in which we live is challenging and sometimes frightening. I don't have to enumerate for you the many reasons to have anxiety about the state of society, but we are not here to become more fearful, but rather to become strong within ourselves, strong as a community, and able to be resilient amid the challenges that life brings to us. That is one of the core reasons of the many reasons to be here, to be a part of a community like this. The good news is that we are innately resilient. Homo sapiens rose about 300,000 years ago, and before that there was a long, long history of those species that came before us, and we have survived. There are scientists who say that there was one point at which, because of the adversity in which we found ourselves as a species, long ago, human beings got down to about 60,000 as a species. So we are extraordinarily resilient, and if we think about what our foremothers and forefathers went through, if we know anything about our family history, we will probably have an intimate appreciation of the difficulties that they went through, and yet they survived. We are inherently resilient. I have been amazed at the things that people have been through that I knew very well, the things people went through and survived and turned what they had gone through into something that they mined for gold, to be a different person, a transformed person, to help others. So I am of the opinion that human beings, for all the reasons I mentioned, are innately resilient. So resilience doesn't merely flow from a subjective resolution to be resilient, but it is part of the very fiber of our being. We are made to be resilient. However, it is possible for us to be out of harmony with that part of us that is resilient. It is possible for us to act in word and deed in a way that places us out of harmony with our innate resilience. The good news is we know what creates resilience. There's enormous amounts of research on it, and we know that we can get in harmony with those parts of ourselves that are resilient. Resilience is the conscious awareness and the practice of actions which bring us into ever deeper harmony with our innate resilience. The blue zones mentioned earlier are a comprehensive map with research involving the whole world of what are the complex conditions which create resilience to the point of widespread longevity in a population. Resilience, for those who study it, has at least 8 components. But today I wish to focus on one very narrow aspect of resilience, one part of that, and it is the ability to communicate with others about important matters. An overwhelming amount of research affirms the importance of being able to communicate deeply with at least one human being, ideally more than one. Conversely, isolation is deadly, sometimes literally so. Research studies show that communication of a deep and intimate kind has a powerfully positive impact on widowers, cancer patients, and people struggling with addictions, among many other conditions. A powerful illustration of the power and importance of communications for resilience and survival was found in a comprehensive study, or several of them, about Vietnam prisoners of war held in captivity in horrendous conditions. For this group of people, who were very often isolated from one another, nothing except food and water exceeded the importance of being able to communicate, even though very indirectly, with a fellow human being who was in the same situation. Prisoners in the situation would go to extraordinary lengths to be able to communicate to another human being. And bear in mind, this was a situation where people were being starved, isolated, beaten, etc. But the value of the relationship gave them a vibrancy to continue to live even under harsh conditions. Their communication would often consist of making sounds, a cough, a shuffle of a certain kind, hitting a cup against the wall, that created a secret code that could be interpreted by others. And even though this Byzantine way of communication was their only way of communication, it was extraordinarily valuable. Communication with prisoners of war in isolation was often called exhilarating for those who experienced it. Now, people face challenges on a wide continuum. At one end are the conditions of these prisoners of war who were literally threatened, their life hanging in a balance. And on the other end is ordinary garden variety struggles of life that all of us are aware of. And in between, there is a lot of things. But what was revealed as important for those in an extreme condition is true for everybody on the entire continuum, which includes us. We face, and those we know face, times of struggle and difficulty. Someone wrote, and I cannot find the ultimate author of this, but someone wrote, treat everyone you know and everyone you meet with great compassion because they are going through some great ordeal. So we're not talking about a rare circumstance, but a common one. Communication with those among us who face difficulties or crises often faces certain challenges. One of them is that we have a tendency to avoid people who we think might be hurting or we think might be going through a difficulty. I have spoken to many people as a pastor who face a great loss or a great challenge, and have frequently heard them describe to me the isolation and intense loneliness they felt as the hardest part of what they were enduring. The loneliness, the isolation, the being alone. It is difficult to overstate the intense isolation that can descend on someone experiencing great loss, or the degree to which we seek to hide our own struggles from others. So there is a big issue with aversion. significant loss of others as we perceive it reminds us of how much we do not control and how capricious life can be. And we want to avoid that. Yet another issue related to that is we do not know what to say or do with those who have suffered a great loss or any type of loss. Very often we believe that we must say, if we're going to say anything, we must say something uplifting or healing or insightful or special or profound. But the truth is, and this is the truth that liberates us, that is not necessary. What is needed by those experiencing significant loss or change is simply our presence. That is the paradox. There is nothing for us to do but to be present. More specifically, we need to avoid trying to fix, save, rescue, or improve, or cover up facts, or deny the facts, or try to make happy. Platitudes, offering advice, saying things that are intended to make the person feel better, wise words, and so on, are not necessary, and may, in fact, might make another person feel even more isolated because they know it's unreal. There are no words that can magically free anyone of the burden of loss or struggle with change. Behaviors that are valuable, however, are easy to do if we would allow it. Being open, being present, being responsive but not intrusive, listening carefully, not feeling a need to talk or not talking very much, but listening. The author and clinical psychologist and contemplative practitioner James Finley wrote this: "When you risk sharing what hurts the most in the presence of someone who will not invade you or abandon you, you can learn not to invade or abandon yourself. Even deeper down, when you risk sharing what hurts the most in the presence of someone who will not invade you or abandon you, you can discover the invincibility in the midst of your fragility." We only need 1 to 3 persons in our lives who will listen to us non-judgmentally with openness and care. Where do we find such resources? Someone in the network of your family system, a life partner, a friend, a teacher, a mentor, a coworker, someone within the religious community. Indeed, I think that one of the great purposes of a religious community like ours is to turn people into people who can listen compassionately to others. Not save or rescue or fix others, but listen compassionately to others. Now, this is interesting. Research indicates that the support of family, friends, teachers, mentors, co-workers, and members of church groups were viewed as more important than psychotherapists, psychiatrists, social workers, and ministers who could provide talk therapy. In other words, it is in our nature to trust more deeply those people who are not employed in being good listeners, but who as persons show up as good listeners. Writing in a journal, drawing, dancing, creating music as a way to express what lies within can also be beneficial. Journaling in particular can be valuable. It shows and it allows a person to express things that might not be easy to express to others. Truly pouring your heart out in a way no one else needs to see or know can be also a beneficial form of self-disclosure. Self-disclosure, it is important to be aware, does not necessarily solve anything. It doesn't magically fix anything, but it helps settle the mind and emotions to the point that resilience can increase and we begin to get in touch with our own strength amid our vulnerability and fragility. Resilience is the ability to move from the shock and blows induced by change to a level of functioning adequate to meet the demands and challenges of life. Resilience is never a return to normal, but the creation of a new normal. We can define and know what resilience is and how it grows and how it is strengthened, and we can practice it. Knowing these things and applying them to our lives increases our ability to be resilient. May we now rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, number 115. Join me now as we extinguish the chalice for our benediction. For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return in affection. And for those who come here to seek a path, may they be found.
Secret, blessed be.
Step.
Step by step, blessed be.
And don't forget the Blue Zones table.